Welcome to episode 19 of the Italian-Americans in Hollywood podcast series. I'm Daley Giacopella, and my co-host is Sadie Bruni.
Hi, Daley, and to everybody listening out there.
Today we're going to explore the life of Dennis Farina, a man who lived two very distinct lives, starting out as a Chicago police detective and then becoming a Hollywood icon. And he often played characters that kind of reflected his past.
Yeah, it's really quite fascinating how his real-life experiences directly informed his acting career. There's a certain authenticity you see in his performances.
Totally. So let's start at the very beginning. Dennis Farina was born Donaldo Guglielmo Farina on Leap Day, 1944, in Chicago's Old Town.
Leap Day, huh?
Yeah, can you imagine trying to...
That's a heck of a birthday.
Yeah, it's a good one. He was the fourth son and the youngest of 7 children in a big Italian-American family.
Oh, wow. So big family. Those Italian roots strong.
Yeah, his father Joseph was a doctor originally from Villaba, Sicily, and his mother Yolanda was a homemaker with roots in Borgo of Buggiano, Tuscany.
That's a story we hear a lot, right? The big family, strong ties to the old country, and the father working hard to provide.
You can really see how those values end up in Farina's work.
You can, yeah.
And then growing up in Chicago's Old Town neighborhood in that era, I mean, that must have had a huge influence on him. It was a real working class area, a real mix of people, but a particularly strong Italian and German presence.
I bet. It's those sorts of environments that can really shape how you see the world. Having that sense of community, of understanding different people's points of view, I think it all just makes you who you are.
Before we get to acting, though, we should talk about his time as a police officer. He served in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam era and then spent 18 years with the Chicago Police Department. From 67 to 85, he went from patrolman all the way up to detective.
18 years. That's a long time to dedicate to law enforcement. It shows a real commitment to justice. And, those are qualities that actually play into a lot of the roles he would take on later.
For sure. You can see that experience of those cop and mobster characters. He knew the streets. He knew the personalities.
It wasn't just acting,
It was real.
If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and watch our shorts videos and other podcasts on Italian-Americans in Hollywood.
So how does a Chicago cop end up in Hollywood? It's kind of a right place, right time sort of story. While still a detective, Farina made his stage debut in 1982 in a Steppenwolf theater production, directed by none other than John Malkovich.
John Malkovich? Wow, Steppenwolf Theater. They're famous for their really out-there productions.
Not the first place you'd expect to find a police detective.
Exactly. Not at all. But I guess it speaks to his...
Well, he always had that artistic side.
Yeah.
And that same year, he started working as a police consultant for director Michael Mann on the film Thief. And Mann was so impressed with Farina's presence and how authentic he was that he actually gave him a small role in the movie.
So Michael Mann just saw something in him. More than just police knowledge.
Yeah, like a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, a real Hollywood story right there.
And it was the start of a long working relationship between those two. Farina went on to appear in a bunch more of Mann's projects, including the iconic TV series Miami Vice.
Miami Vice. Talk about a cultural phenomenon. The style, the music, the stories, everything about it was just huge. And there Farina was, right in the thick of it.
He played mobster Albert Lombard in 3 episodes. Even early in his acting career, you can see how he was drawn to those tough guy roles.
It makes sense. Casting directors see him. They see, look, the voice. Everything just screams tough guy. But as we'll see, there's a lot more to Farina than just playing the tough guy.
His big break came in '86 with the NBC series Crime Story. He played Lieutenant Mike Torello, a Chicago police officer assigned to the U.S. Justice Department's Organized Crime Strike Force. And the show itself actually took inspiration from Farina's own experiences in the Chicago PD.
Crime Story. It put Farina on the map. It was this gritty, realistic show that people loved, and he was fantastic in it.
You could see the passion in his performance. He wasn't just acting like a cop, he was living it.
It felt real.
And that's what made it so good to watch.
Yeah, and what's interesting is even when his acting career starts taking off, he never really abandoned his police background. He'd still consult on movies and shows, using his experience to make those cop portrayals more realistic.
Shows a real dedication to both worlds.
Yeah.
He didn't want to just play a cop. He wanted to make sure cops were portrayed, right?
It says something about him, he wasn't just in it for the fame. He wanted to make those two worlds work together.
Right around the same time as Crime Story, Farina also made his feature film debut in the 1986 thriller Manhunter. And this is where things get really interesting because he played FBI agent Jack Crawford, the guy who's hunting down Hannibal Lecter. I mean, the Hannibal
Yeah.
Lecter.
Whoa, before Anthony Hopkins made the role famous,
Yeah.
Farina brought this real intensity to the part. Makes you wonder how the whole Hannibal Lecter story would gone if he had kept playing that role.
It's a good question. When we think of Farina, we think of cops and mobsters.
Yeah.
But was it just his looks, his background, or something more?
It's tough to say for sure. I mean, there's definitely typecasting in Hollywood, especially for actors who have that strong physical presence and that specific set of experiences. But Farina had that tough guy look that just fit those roles.
Oh, yeah.
But he also had this depth, a charisma that went beyond just being a tough guy.
Mm-hmm. He could be scary one minute, then charming and funny the next.
There was something mischievous about him, like he was always in on a joke.
And then you see him in comedic roles, and he's just hilarious. He was so good in Midnight Run and Get Shorty. His timing was perfect. He could deliver a line with just the right amount of bite.
Oh, absolutely. Get Shorty. He plays Ray Bones Barboni.
Yep.
He's this bad guy, but he's also kind of a mess. He's dangerous, but you can't help but laugh at him.
He really was a great mix of threatening and funny.
It was perfect. It's that you never really knew what he was going to do next, but you knew it was going to be good.
He was unpredictable.
Yeah.
And in Midnight Run, he plays mob boss Jimmy Serrano, going toe-to-toe with Robert De Niro, no less.
Yeah.
He holds his own. He's sharp. He's funny. It's a really memorable performance.
It shows how he could play these larger-than-life characters, but still find those little moments of subtlety, those nuances.
He could do it all. And then there's that old feeling from '97. He plays opposite Bette Midler. It's a romantic lead role.
Oh, wow.
Pretty different from the usual. But it shows he could handle that softer side, too.
You don't see that side of him a lot. It's good that he tried different things.
He really could do it all. He could be tough. He could be funny. He could even be romantic. Dennis Farina was a true chameleon.
He had a real commitment to his roles. You could see that he really put his heart into it, and I think that's what made him so watchable.
So let's fast forward a bit to the early 2000s. Farina was still working consistently in both film and television. He had some great parts in movie Snatch. He was the unforgettable Cousin Avi, this fast-talking New York jeweler who gets mixed up in the London diamond trade.
If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and watch our shorts videos and other podcasts on Italian-Americans in Hollywood.
Cousin Avi's a fan favorite for sure. He gets some of the best lines in that movie, and Farina just nails them. You see that mix of toughness and humor again.
And then there's Empire Falls, the HBO miniseries. He worked with Ed Harris, Helen Hunt. He played Walt Como, the owner of the diner. A bit gruff, but a good guy deep down.
Right back to those working class roots.
Exactly.
Playing characters people can relate to.
Empire Falls got great reviews, and Farina was fantastic.
Oh, he was so good. He brought a warmth to Walt. Made him very likable.
And then you have something completely different. He did voice work for animation. He was Wildcat in Justice League Unlimited.
The boxer turned superhero.
Yeah, it's not something everyone knows about him.
But it shows that he was willing to try anything.
He was all about the craft of acting. And then in 2004, he went back to his law enforcement roots. He joined the cast of Law & Order as Detective Joe Fontana.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big deal. He brought a lot of credibility to the role.
Replacing the beloved Jerry Orbach? That's tough to do. But Farina pulled it off. He brought his own style to the role.
Tough, but also street smart. A little bit of a dry sense of humor. Perfect for Law & Order.
It's funny how much his character, Detective Fontana, actually had in common with Farina himself.
That's right.
I mean, they were both from the same Chicago neighborhood. They went to the same parochial school.
And they were both huge Chicago Cubs fans.
It's a great example of how his real life ended up in his acting.
He brought that authenticity to the role because he'd lived it.
And people could tell.
Speaking of real life, we should talk a little bit more about Farina's personal life. He was married to Patricia Farina from 1970 to 1980. They had 3 sons together, Dennis Jr., Michael, and Joseph.
And Joseph actually became an actor as well.
Keeping it in the family.
Besides acting, Farina was a big baseball fan.
Oh, yeah. He loved the Chicago Cubs.
A true Chicagoan.
Yeah.
He even appeared in a revival of the play Bleacher Blues. It's all about these diehard Cubs fans.
It must have been fun for him to combine those 2 passions, acting and baseball.
Before we go any further, though, there's something we should address. In 2008, Farina was arrested at LAX. He had a loaded, unregistered handgun in his briefcase.
If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and watch our shorts videos and other podcasts on Italian-Americans in Hollywood.
It was a big story, and it kind of tarnished his image at the time.
It did.
Farina insisted it was an accident. He said he simply forgot the gun was there. He didn't mean to bring it to the airport.
He pleaded no contest to a felony charge and ended up with 2 years of probation.
It was a serious lapse in judgment.
But it's a good reminder that we all make mistakes.
And to Farina's credit, he owned up to it. He apologized. She did his time.
It shows that even our heroes are human. They make mistakes just like everyone else.
The important thing is what we do afterward.
Yeah, learn from it and move on.
And Farina kept working in Hollywood.
Yeah.
He didn't let this one incident define him.
Shows his resilience. He never gave up.
So what about his legacy? How is he remembered?
I think it's his authenticity. He was always himself. He was proud of where he came from,
Yeah.
and that came through in his acting. He wasn't afraid to show his flaws, to be vulnerable.
He was a tough guy, but he was also human.
And that's what made him relatable. He wasn't some untouchable movie star. He was a guy from Chicago. He lived a life.
Yeah.
And you could see that in his work. And then there's the charisma.
Oh, yeah.
He lit up every room he walked into. He had this great smile, this charm.
He always knew he'd be a fun guy to be around.
And of course, that voice,
That Chicago accent
unmistakable.
gave him an air of authority.
You always paid attention when he spoke. And then his physicality.
He owned the screen. He was tall and imposing,
Yeah.
but he moved with this real grace.
He could be threatening one minute and charming the next. It was amazing.
He was a master of body language.
Yeah.
He had it all, the looks, the voice, the charisma, and the talent.
He was a true original. And he left his mark on Hollywood.
You know, before we wrap up, I want to mention one of his maybe less well-known roles.
Okay.
From 2008 to 2010, Farina hosted and narrated Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh, yeah. Taking over for Robert Stack, not an easy thing to do.
No, definitely not. But it was a good fit for him. He had that seriousness, that authority, but also the compassion. The show dealt with some tough topics.
Definitely. And he was really good at it. You could tell that he really wanted to help bring some resolution to those cases.
He did. And he was so good at connecting with the viewers at home. He made them feel like they were part of the investigation.
I think it shows a different side of him.
It does.
He wasn't just an actor. He really cared.
Unsolved Mysteries. It was different from all those tough guy roles he was known for. But it shows you there was another side to Dennis Farina. A very compassionate side.
Absolutely. It proves that he was more than just a tough guy, you know?
He really was.
If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and watch our shorts videos and other podcasts on Italian-Americans in Hollywood.
So as we think about his life and career, what are some of the things we can learn from him?
I think one of the biggest things is to be yourself. Farina never tried to be anything other than who he was. He was a Chicago guy through and through, and that really came through in his acting.
He never forgot where he came from, and he showed that it's never too late to go after your dreams.
He didn't start acting till he was almost 40.
Exactly. And he had such a great career.
It shows that success is about more than just money and fame. It's about finding something you love and making a difference in the world.
Dennis Farina did all of that. He was a talented actor, a devoted family man, and a good person.
A true inspiration.
Well, we've reached the end of our look at Dennis Farina's incredible life, from those early days in Chicago to becoming a Hollywood star. It's a story of passion, resilience, and being true to yourself.
He left behind a body of work that will entertain people for years to come.
Whether he was playing a cop or a mobster or just a regular guy, he always brought something real to his characters.
He was one of a kind.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed learning more about this amazing Italian-American actor. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and watch our shorts videos and other podcasts on Italian-Americans in Hollywood.
Be sure to check out some of his movies and shows if you haven't already.
And until next time, keep exploring those fascinating stories from the world of Italian-Americans in Hollywood show. Ciao!